Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Friends from Film School. I'm Luke Pilgrim.
I'm Brad Kennedy.
And I'm Ellis.
All right, guys. So I actually have a surprise for you guys. Something I made for you just this morning. I'm going to send it to you. Ellis, if you'll put the graphic up for everybody, but I'm just going to send it to you guys real quick in our chat.
The graphic?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a little image I made. Just like a present for you.
Okay, 1 second.
But you don't have to pull it up right now. I'm saying like when you put it on later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it's going to look all crappy on here. I'm just sending it to you so you guys can look at it. I sent it in the group chat.
Okay. Yeah, I'll throw it up then.
Oh, you meant when editing the video. Gotcha.
I thought you meant right now. I was like, where do I go?
All right, check it out.
So we need to look at it now
You'll
on our
pull it up.
phones.
Okay,
Luke Pilgrim sent a photo. Oh, whoa.
This is us reimagined.
Oh, my word.
The characters of the Tiger King. I just made that right before. That's why when you text, I was like, oh, yeah, I'll jump on in here just in a second because I was making
You're finishing that up. So that helping someone out from your church was just an elaborate ruse to
No, that was true too.
us.
That was true too. Dude,
That's
look
officially when you know you have too much time on your hands, dude.
That's the ultimate quarantine Photoshop. So I guess no better time than now to jump in. Obviously, I think like everyone else in the United States, if not the whole planet, is quarantined at home and then also watching the Tiger King on Netflix, right?
Yeah, it seems like it.
It's insane.
I know.
Right?
Ellis, how far did you get, Ellis?
I made it through like 20 minutes of episode 2, but I've seen all of episode 1.
Dude, see, you got to get the end of episode 2 is where it blows the doors
that's
off.
when you're just like, okay, I got to keep going.
Like, dude, just like the beginning of it was insane. All right.
Yeah.
But at the end of episode 2 is where you start to learn about sorry, if anybody's listening, I don't know if there may be spoilers here. If we're
I want to talk and get deep into it. Ellis, do you mind if there's spoilers?
I don't care. It's a documentary show.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I heard a lot of spoilers before I watched it, and it was still insane because I was listening to other podcasts and they were talking about it. But so, like, at the end of episode 2 is where you start to learn about the cult-like atmosphere that was happening. Like,
of all the places.
All the places, and especially it blew my mind with the guy that I turned Ellis into. Was that guy Doc Antle or something?
Doc Antle.
Yeah, Antle.
Vagabond.
That Vagabond. That guy is like, he's got like just a harem of women that he just sleeps with. He forces them to have breast implants and stuff like that. It's insane.
That and it's like, was he the one that he only pays them like $100 a week?
I think that was Joe Exotic. I think they only made $100 a week.
Okay, I can't remember.
No. You're right. It was that.
I think he did 100, and then Joe was like 125, 150.
It was that girl because the girl that said she was kind of forced to have breast implants was talking about how they made $100 a week. It's crazy.
But yeah, Ellis.
Like
at that point, it's like that's when I felt like everything started really ramping up, and it became like, okay, these people, Joe does this. He takes people straight from jail. You know, he kind of gives them a place to stay, gives them housing. What did you think about like the whole meat truck thing? Was that not crazy?
Man. That's insane. So Ellis, I guess you haven't seen that, have you? They literally feed all these animals by bringing all the expired food from Walmart.
Oh, I didn't see. I saw that they got like a lot of cows a day or whatever. Like there was a lot of cows that were donated.
They brought in,
like the cats.
All this expired meat from Walmart, and then later on,
pretty much, you probably know this from working at a grocery store. If you buy the meat and then your credit card gets declined or you can't pay for it, they can't put that meat back, you know, in the meat section. So they had to throw it away. So Joe's getting all that from Walmart, you know, in a truck full.
And then the people that work there are just kind of selecting the stuff they want as they're taking it out. And then later on, they ended up supposedly using meat from that expired.
They opened a pizza shop.
to make pizzas. They used all that expired meat on these pizzas.
Dude, I read the funniest thing online. I think it was on Reddit, and it was this meme where it's like when you figure out you went to Joe Exotic Zoo and had a pizza, and it was the gif of Jim Carrey from Dumb and Dumber going, ugh.
Yeah. Dude, how about maybe the best part of it all is his music videos.
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
Oh,
so
man.
I did some outside research, too, on that, and that is not his voice, clearly.
So who's singing on it?
He has like ghost singers or whatever. He would hire people out and just lip sync to it.
I thought he was a really good singer. I was like, dude, this is actually not bad.
Yeah, I was like, he's decent. I was like, maybe they're just auto-tuning him to death, but he wasn't bad.
See, that was my thought at first. Let me look it up.
Dude, everything about the dude is a lie. If he's not even singing on his own fake weird, how about just like
he knows how to make money always though.
I couldn't understand. Like, I mean, those music videos are. It's like is he taking it seriously? Is it? Does he know that he's ridiculous, or is that like legit? Like he thinks he's making that music is part of his, art.
Okay, here's an article. This is from Taste of Country. Per the Los Angeles Times, the voice you hear on classics like "I Saw a Tiger" is not Exotic's. Though he won't admit it. Supposedly, songwriters and vocal performers Danny Clinton and Vince Johnson made up the voice of the songs in the music videos. In the credits of the documentary series, both names are credited under archival footage. Exotic met the duo when they were writing songs on commission. Clinton and Johnson worked with Exotic for the promise of exposure from his greenlit reality show that never happened. That was crazy too, right? The whole I
was gonna talk about that, like his reality show that he has.
Well, it never came to be.
Yeah.
Oh.
They were filming all that stuff. They were filming 24/7, and then basically, what they think is that he burnt down his own place, right?
Yeah.
Like he's the one that pretty much destroyed it because they had kind of evidence, really, of all kinds of things that were happening there.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm just going to burn all these records. I'm going to buy a burner phone.
Yeah.
I just can't believe the guy, like Joe Exotic, decides to run for president of the United States in the 2016 election.
I feel like I remember hearing about it now, too. Like, I whenever they showed
Did you see the John Oliver clip when it aired or whatever?
Yeah, I feel like I remember that. And I had I didn't put it together though until I got to that episode and they started talking about it. But I feel like in 2016 I remember hearing about this dude running for president.
Dude, I think like my favorite episode of the whole series though was definitely when they, I think episode 3 they opened up about Carol Baskin's whole previous marriage, her killing her husband, because episode 2 ends in such a great cliffhanger ending when they're like, oh, she killed her husband, and then it's credits. Yeah.
See, I was gonna definitely say, I was about to say that lady's got to be insane. Okay, I'm only seen episode 1, but there was a line where she was just like, growing up, I wasn't the kind of person to have friends.
Oh yeah, that's a clear indicator.
I was like, you're definitely insane.
All right, so how about Carol Baskins? Who do you? What do y'all think about her, what she does versus what they're doing with these zoos? To me, I don't see a huge difference in the way she's keeping these caged animals, these big cats and stuff, versus what they're doing at the zoo, because hers is open to the public and everything as well.
Yeah,
I agree when Joe called her a hypocrite. I thought that was true.
Yeah, the crazy thing is she used to breed cats as well and sell them. So it's she was in the same thing. I mean, I guess she wisened up about that. But, they show her some of the cages. She has some they advertise to be a lot bigger. And then they're small.
They're tiny.
The ones they show are tiny. The whole, volunteer system thing I thought was just crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And
did you see, how early on, Joe Exotic was like basically speaking out against breeding.
Oh yeah,
and
that was
selling
the
cats.
end of the whole documentary.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like obviously he changed his tune drastically, I guess, because he started making a lot of money and
Yeah.
everything. But man, it seemed like he actually kind of cared about the animals when
Oh
he was
yeah.
starting out.
See, I think like with all the craziness of the documentary, everyone is really crazy, insane. They all have like the weirdest hairstyles too. I was like weird facial hair, like ponytails and mullets, and just like I don't know.
What, and it's like, what is that? How did that culture, like the zoo, like industry there, like attract these people? These like, I guess, sort of redneck, biker, whatever, different,
I
like
don't know,
just sect
man.
of society, all got into breeding and selling
Big cats.
exotic animals. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, but well, I would lost my train of thought. But yeah, her whole thing of having like the volunteers, and she's like, oh, until they're here for like 5 years, I don't really
I don't.
learn their names. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. 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 They all wear these different colored shirts. That's how they know if they are like an intern, if they've been there for 2 years or whatever. It's like these yellow, blue, red, different colored shirts for the people that
Well,
work. This is at the Big Cat Sanctuary or
yeah,
whatever.
the crazy thing to me too is her whole like she'll live stream on Facebook and like has like they're raking in like tons of money off of YouTube, because all of
Yeah.
her stuff is in like the millions of views, so they're banking ad revenue as well,
Hey, all
so
you cats and kittens.
hey big cats and hey cool cats and kittens.
Yeah. Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Yeah, those. Have you watched any of her videos?
No, not other
Not
than
at
what they
all.
showed on the thing.
Yeah, I haven't.
But
I haven't
I
either.
definitely feel like she killed her husband, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, it seems like it. It's like, so the fact that they had it put into the will about if he disappeared, you know.
yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah. And they're talking to the lawyer, and he's like, yeah, I haven't seen that in like my 30 years of doing
yeah,
law. Dude,
because
what
I was
was with
thinking,
that guy, too? He's wearing like a white dress shirt, and a white polka dot tie. I was like, is he a clown in his spare time? Like, he's about to end this interview and just like put on some white face paint, walk out, throw on the big nose, take his
Look, man,
hair, mess it
times are
up.
tough over there. All right.
I was wondering, yeah, if that's because it seems like plausible that you would put something like in the case of a death or disappearance, because you know how legal contracts are always like covering everything you
Yeah.
could think of. But then when several people were like, yeah, I've never heard of putting that in a living will, blah blah blah. So she probably, it seems like she maybe killed her husband.
Yeah. Well,
How,
I thought the crazy thing too, she's like, Joe's talking about how someone in his park tried to get the tiger to buy them on purpose by pouring the perfume on them. And
yeah.
then she's like, well, if you want someone to, kill you or bite your leg off, you need to just put some sardine oil on it. And I was like,
Yeah.
why would you say that?
Yeah.
Like everyone in that documentary said like the most incriminating things, and then Joe's like,
Yeah.
I don't know why they're trying to persecute
Like,
me.
like
Every moment I have, I try to talk about killing Carol Baskin.
I know, like Jeff Lowe, when he was talking, he was like, all I told the guy, the guy that was supposedly going to kill Carol
Yeah,
Baskins, he's like, all I said to him was, listen, you just got to tell the truth. And, or no, he was like, I maybe, encouraged him to say these certain things or whatever. And I was like, dude, you literally just said, you like told him what to say.
dude. What about the guy they sent to kill in the last episode? They interview him in the bathtub. He's just like, I'm just going to,
Why?
like, okay, if we were going and doing a documentary, I don't think I would ever be like, yeah, just sit down in the bathtub. We'll keep the camera rolling. I'd be like, no, I'm out of here.
Yeah, like who said like, oh yeah, he's like, I was gonna run a bath. They're like, oh, we'll just interview you in the bathtub then. Like, and he's got like his bathing suit on or something.
Yeah.
Still. And I'm like, I think it's because he's like on drugs, dude. Like all
Dude,
these
they
people
all
are
were
on drugs. So it's like he was probably like, oh, how about the one guy? He was like, he seemed like he really cared about the animals, but he had to go testify. Or
Oh,
whatever.
the long-haired blonde guy.
Not him, but the other guy. That guy seemed like he cared about animals too. But the other guy who was close with Joe Exotic, and he
didn't have. He had prosthetic legs.
Yeah, him. Was
Rinky.
Him? Dude, now I'm confused. It was either him or the long-haired guy. No, it was the long-haired guy. It was when they were back at his house later, and he was obviously drinking or something, and he just seemed like he was either like super high or really drunk, because he just falls back on the bed, and they're sitting there like interviewing and talking to him.
I was like, even the whole thing with Joe's like polygamous relationship, having like 2 husbands. From what I researched online, he had like 1 even before that. He marries Travis, kills himself. That was
dude. Ellis, that's a big spoiler there, but man, there's a moment that was so dark, because they have the security footage, not of the guy shooting himself, but of the other guy's reaction.
Because he's like, Travis, when he commits suicide, which I guess like people speculate if it was, if he was playing around, because they're all shooting guns like all the time at that zoo, which I thought was crazy anyway, because they have, tons of cats who are probably freaking out, every 10 seconds. But regardless, he's like right underneath the camera apparently when he shoots himself. So they just show, and they're holding on it, the guy's footage. It would remind me of the show, what was it, like Masterminds or whatever, the documentary. Did you see that one, Luke?
I don't think
it was
so.
The guy, he had like the bomb strapped to his neck and had to go rob the bank. Came out like a year or 2 ago on Netflix.
I remember hearing about that. I haven't seen it though.
That was pretty harrowing too, but yeah, that was.
Yeah, because he's in there talking to
the campaign manager.
Yeah, Joe Exotic's campaign manager, and he was pointing the gun at him, and the guy's like, "I've told you, don't point the gun at me." And he's like, "Dude, this is a Ruger or whatever." He's like, it won't shoot without the clip in it. It has to have the clip in it, blah, blah, blah. And he like points it to his own head, and you just see a flash on the screen, because like I said, he's under the camera. You can't see the guy. But it's like, and then the guy's just like, and he just sits there for like literally like a minute of just, and then he's like, and he gets up. It's it's like
I'd probably puke, dude.
It's a freaky moment to see on TV.
Yeah, for sure. And then like moments later, seeing Joe, like the whole funeral thing, that was so bizarre. Like
he performed. He sings one of his songs at Travis's funeral. It was terrible, dude. Why did he do that?
And that's not even the worst of it. And I won't even mention that.
So,
but
did like the guy? So Travis was his first husband, right? That they introduced in episode 1.
He's like one of the 2.
Travis was his like second. Like the first one was the guy with the teeth, the crazy teeth.
Yeah,
no teeth. He had
meth
him
mouth.
first. He got, and he gets these guys right out of high school.
Well, I was gonna say one of them was from high school, and like there was footage of them like talking and stuff. So I didn't know if it was like they were in the middle of filming the documentary when like he like accidentally like shot himself.
Yeah, I guess they were there filming that documentary for what, like 5 years?
Yeah, it said they'd worked on it 5 years. I don't know how long they were actually there filming. I guess, when did he get arrested?
I think like it seemed like 2018, 2019 maybe. I don't know.
I think it was 2018, because I think one of those news things said that. I don't know.
It wasn't too long ago. But it was, I don't know, man. The one thing I really loved though was the introductions of certain like people in the documentary, because it seemed like big movie moment introductions for people, especially Jeff Lowe. If you remember that, Luke, because they're kind of talking about something, and then suddenly they show like, this fancy, I think, Hummer drive up, and this guy's boots step out. It was filmed in such a cinematic way of like, okay, this is a whole new character coming to town. It reminded me of a movie of like in the second act, the real bad guy shows up or whatever.
Yeah, they had a lot of really great shots, a lot of really cinematic shots, I thought. And it, because a lot of it seemed like not even like documentary looking shots, but, you know, really creative stuff. It didn't feel like they were just there, like just shooting and like capturing what's happening. It felt like they were really thinking through their shots, you know, shot progressions. And it was well done.
I really liked the moment when the directors were talking to the guy with like who used to have like long hair, like a long gray ponytail that was on like the Letterman. He was on one of the late night shows.
I think
that's the guy I made you into.
Yeah, when he was first introduced, the documentary crew was going to his house, and he was like telling them, he's like, all right, now I'm going to open the door, you guys come up to the door, and we're going to film it this way. And the directors were like, dude, this guy's better at directing than like we are. And it was like all of that behind the scenes before, and then like they showed like that actually happened. I thought that was so funny.
That guy, Doc Antill, went with, like, you could tell like he was always playing that character. Like when they go into his gift shop or whatever, and up on the screen is like that. Is that what you were talking about right there when they were playing that footage of him up there? They're showing the footage of him of the late night show.
Yeah.
He's like talking, but he's like, here you'll see one of my many blah blah blah, and he just, it's like he's memorized this thing to say. How about like when Joe Exotic burnt his place down or whatever? They're making videos about it, and he's standing there like, someone came in here and set this place, towering inferno. You know, he's like running through the different lines. And he take it again, and he walks through it again. That was pretty wild to see that.
Yeah. That, what else? Oh, just like, to me, the whole thing with, I forget the guy's name, but he's the guy who owned all the strip clubs. Even just the footage of him on the jet ski running around.
Dude, I was like, Kenny Powers.
Yeah, it seemed like it was straight out of Eastbound and Down. Like,
so that guy, I can't remember his name, but he was always, it always just said businessman. That was his description. And I thought, the thing I couldn't help but think the whole time, I was like, I wish this guy would get a different haircut. Because he looks so weird with this like. It's like
he saw.
He looked like he was in the Monkees.
He saw Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic and was like, I want that, and I'm never going to change. Yeah, that's my thing with Jeff Lowe too. I was like, dude, like, what are you hiding? Like the fact you have no hair, but you have like these wispy, like, you know, long mullet. Hairs that mullet, but you're always wearing like this bandana and like Affliction Ed Hardy hat.
Oh yeah, I like when Joe Exotic's going on his date and he's like, I got to get my curls out. That's my sex appeal.
Yeah. And he goes up and gets his like one leather jacket out of like a whole line of them.
Yeah. I don't know where he shops.
Like a cartoon character, dude.
Dude, they all seem like it.
Everything he wears has like tassels or like, what do you call it? Fringe. Fringe, that's the word.
Yeah.
Everything had fringe.
Well, okay, Luke, what do you think about like Carol Baskin's current husband? Like that guy was crazy too, right? Like,
yeah,
their whole like marriage ceremony photos, and he's in like a caveman costume.
Yeah.
What?
And he's
and there's a photo of her with him in a leash. I was like, what?
That's what their relationship seemed like. Like he's on a leash. Like,
hey, Luke, that's the kind of people that dress up as a dog and go on the cruise line.
Yeah. Exactly.
Meeting will end in 10 minutes. I guess we'll have to pick back up.
Yeah. Carol Baskin and her husband, their relationship seemed odd. Like, I mean, it seemed like this partnership more so, you know, than like a marriage almost. Yeah. Like, I guess just obviously he's got to be in on whatever she's been in on or whatever she's doing.
Well, what I want to know is like, how do you have that conversation of, okay, a lot of people think I killed my husband, but you know, I didn't. I won't kill you. Yeah, I won't kill you. Let's get married. And he's like, yeah, well, I'm in.
Yeah. So how about like how they were planning to kill her, like when she's riding on her bike, and they use Google Earth. They use Google Earth to look at the street view of where, and like, so I'm like, this sounds like they're literally planning on killing her. And it sounded like Jeff Lowe gave them the idea. He's like, well, look at the street view here. And he's like telling them how to do it. And they said that Joe Exotic wasn't even in on that conversation at the time. I think there was definitely some sketchy stuff as far as him being set up. I don't know if he like really paid that guy to go kill her, or if he did what he said, where he gave him $3,000 so he could get out of town and go to North Carolina or whatever.
Yeah, who knows? Because then they have like the phone recording of Alan saying he's doing it, and then they cut to an interview of him, and he's like, "No, I never did that." I'm like, "That's your voice, dude. Like, that's clearly you."
I like how he's like, I guess I chickened out or whatever, and I just decided to go to North Carolina instead.
I don't know. It makes me not want to go to like a private zoo.
No. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So at the end, it tells you that there's only like 4,000 of these tigers left in the wild, and there's over 10,000 or something in the U.S.
It's like 5 to 10,000.
5 to 10,000 privately owned in the U.S. And those can never be put out in the wild because they're dependent on humans.
Yeah.
They're used to being fed. And then there's only 4,000 that still exist in the wild. Oh, that's crazy. That seems like such a low number, man. I mean, obviously.
What, in the wild or?
Yeah, they're endangered, but it's like, even if you put together all of them, that's still like a low number. All the ones in the U.S. and the ones in the wild.
Yeah.
Compare that to like 7 billion people on Earth or whatever.
I don't know, man.
That's crazy.
I think what I like about this whole thing too is that so many people are at home right now because of like the coronavirus, and yet it became like a huge cultural thing of everyone watching this documentary, or at least knowing about this documentary. Like I felt like a couple of days, maybe before I even started watching it myself, like I got on Instagram, I got on Facebook, and I was seeing stuff about it. Like even just suddenly the memes pages I followed, which I feel like is an indication of what the overall society and culture is going towards. They went from the coronavirus to Tiger King. Like
that's what happened 180 too. Yeah.
How about it kind of reminds me of Making a Murderer. When that show came out, everybody was watching that and everybody was talking about it. Mm-hmm. Netflix is good at creating that kind
They're
of
trendsetters, all right.
Documentary.
Yeah. Like even I don't think it was as big of a splash, but I really enjoyed the Wild Wild Country one about the kind of, it wasn't Hindu, but it was kind of fringe Hindu cult in Oregon that took over this town. Like that was a really good one too. But yeah, I feel like their documentary selection is really awesome. So that's the other thing I want to talk about. Like, they worked on this documentary for 5 years. Like, they had to have, at some point during the making of the documentary, be in contact with Netflix. Netflix have to, either start bankrolling it or like be involved in some way. That's my assumption, because there's
no way they could have afforded to pay the entire crew like all those days of filming.
Yeah, well, that or the travel. To me too, it's like if you're putting this whole thing together for that long, like I don't know. It seemed like Netflix has that track record, right, with Making a Murderer and all these other documentary series that come out, that they would have to be constantly searching or have contact with the filmmakers of this and be in discussion of, hey, let's make this, or we hear you're working on this project, and then they show them like maybe a teaser or something of what they're working on. I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine these people, like the creators of the documentary, they probably were working on it already, or or at least had this concept or
Yeah.
something, and they went to Netflix with a pitch, and they had probably a lot of research already where they're like, look, I mean, there's this war happening, like the Hatfields and McCoys. These people are warring against each other. A lot of people think that this Carol Baskins lady killed her husband. Then we got this character over here named Joe Exotic, who's just like a cartoon character, and he seems completely insane. And then they're like, plus all these other characters that we can sprinkle in that are all involved in this world of big cats and exotic
former drug dealers in Miami,
Yeah.
you know, Dunk Antile in South Carolina. Even Tim Stark, the guy with the monkey the whole time.
Yeah, and they were smuggling drugs in snakes.
Oh, that hurt me. Like, I'm not even a fan of snakes really, but man, just seeing that one that was like stitched up, it just broke my heart, terrible. Man.
Yeah. So what's interesting about documentaries is how, you know, they honestly, they don't know the story going. Mm-hmm. They know a little bit. They have kind of an idea, but they don't know until they get in their editing or until they're looking the whole time. That's why they're filming for 5 years. And then they're like, I think we finally found our ending. I think we finally found that direction that we need to go.
Yeah.
They don't know. They're watching for that. And like a really good documentary, like, you know, creator or director or whatever, they're always on the lookout for like, what is the story? What is the direction that this needs to go?
I feel like too, working on this for 5 years, you would get so entangled in all of these people's lives yourselves. You know, it kind of.
I can't imagine being the crew, dude. Like, what would you think? Like, while you're out there filming, I wouldn't want them to like shoot me, so I'd have to be like as nice as possible to all of them because they're like insane.
Yeah, it seemed like they all opened up to, you know, all the filmmakers, but like even the guy making the reality TV show, and you know, they burned down the studios.
All his footage.
All his footage is gone, and then he has like a mental breakdown. I'm like, I completely get that. You know, I just couldn't imagine them not having multiple places to back up. And it seemed like they had some of that footage, or did they recreate it?
I think they had some. I think that Joe had it and maybe gave it to them or whatever to use some of that footage, because they would say certain things and then cut to it. So I'm like, obviously that footage had to have survived. Yeah. I don't know, but then it's like that guy who was the reality show producer, like he owns that footage, right? So
yeah, I mean, from the contract.
I mean, maybe because maybe then if they did have it still and they used it, that would mean for sure that Joe burnt that place down then. But I guess, I don't know. I'd be curious to see if if he got any kind of credit on the documentary. Yeah, if he's making money off of it somehow or whatever, because if they used any of his footage, I imagine he would. All right. So do you want to pick back up on that, or do you guys want to move on to a new topic?
Move on to a new one.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could probably talk about Tiger King forever. I was looking back over the graphic you sent, and that's just the funniest thing. I'm really upset that you made me, Jeff Lowe, but though I do think it's weird you made yourself Joe Exotic. That's
yeah, that was a bold statement.
That's a questionable choice there.
I felt like we kind of favor.
This will financially ruin me.
Oh yeah, how about that, man?
I love how he puts on the EMS jacket, though. The bomber jacket that has EMS, like, you know.
If I paid you $50, would you get a mullet?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
50.
Not for $50. $50. No.
How much money?
How much
would I pay you? But how much would it take?
A lot. If I had to like shave the top of my hair and leave it long in the back, it would. You'd have to pay me a lot.
I imagine your mom would be like, "Oh no, Luke."
Yes, she'd be like, "What have you done?"
I think Merv would be a wild card, honestly.
You think he would like it?
What would Carrie's thoughts on it be?
Divorce.
Yeah, she would leave me instantly. What if I bleached it too, like Joe Exotic?
Oh.
Get the piercings and everything. Just go all the way.
Dude,
that thing on his eyebrow is barely hanging on.
It's like blocking his line of sight. I don't see how that wouldn't be the most annoying thing.
It's just like it's barely in the skin. I feels like you could just go and it would come out, just barely tug on it.
And take part of the eyebrow with it.
Yeah.
So I had something that I was wanting to talk to you guys about.
Okay.
I was some stuff I was reading about. This is more along the lines of filmmaking.
Okay.
And it is character archetypes. And I thought we could talk about that a little bit, talk about what they are for people who don't know, and talk about some of the big ones, maybe where we've seen them in movies, stuff like that. I read this article on No Film School that was cool because it broke down a lot of the stuff for you. And there was a video I watched that was cool because they sort of explained character archetypes in a way that's easier to understand, I feel like. So part of it, y'all know who Jordan Peterson is? He's the guy. He's on Joe Rogan a lot. He's
isn't that the guy on the only meat diet or something?
He's on the carnivore diet. Yeah, he's a University of Toronto professor. So, but he talks about this kind of stuff a lot because it kind of has to do with his the stuff he teaches. But he said most fundamentally an archetype is a behavioral pattern and the reflection of that behavior in a story. So what I thought was cool in this video I watched was how these like ancient patterns, they basically were like telling stories to understand the world and leave these stories for their children, so that they could help understand their reality better. And the most mind-blowing of it all is that different cultures and different eras, maybe separated by thousands of years, with no communication either, like across the globe, had these shared archetypes in their stories. And so
are you talking about like with the hero's journey, like the hero, the wizard, like those roles, or?
Right. Like the wise man or something, right? Is like one of the examples they give.
Like old wise guy that's like got all the answers for like the young hero that as like he's going through his journey or whatever.
I guess like the mentor. They list 12 character archetypes in this article, but it's amazing though that these stories existed. Very similar stories existed without any communication, and I don't know, is that based on experience that is like fundamental to the human existence, or is it almost like ingrained in our DNA almost, or something, or in that sort of consciousness of,
it's kind of that same question we had last week, right? Where it's, how do people come up with the same movie concepts around the same time?
Right. That parallel thinking or whatever. So, and I think too, it's like for a filmmaker, like someone who's writing a script, it's really important to understand the archetypes because these roles are ancient, it's like they go back so far and they're ingrained in our culture and our collective consciousness. I think it's a big part of really good storytelling, understanding those roles. So yeah, they list like 12 of them here. Now, some of them I don't really know. I've never thought of some of these, like the orphan. I guess that's a common archetype. I don't know.
Like Batman, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Batman is Well,
They
I'm trying
list
to think of other stuff that like there's orphans in though.
A&E.
Those. Oh yeah.
What about
AI.
Well, I guess so.
Story. What about
his dad? His dad exists though.
Yeah.
Because he goes back and meets him, and AI is pretty much like a retelling of Pinocchio.
Right. They break these down sort of by, like the orphan, for instance. They list strengths. They command respect. They're survivors. They have empathy for the commoners. Weaknesses. They're driven by They're driven by what others think of them. No self-confidence, too eager to please. Motivation to be understood, accepted, and connect with people. And then they list all these other ones like the warrior, the child, the creator, the caregiver, the mentor, the joker, the magician, the ruler, the rebel, the lover, the seducer.
Just imagine on the Joker one, it's like Joaquin Phoenix, Oscar-winning actor. Yeah, it's like typically portrayed by an Oscar-winning actor, unless your name's Jared Leto.
Right.
Well, I guess he has won an Oscar, just not for that role.
So do you think that there's like new archetypes that are like being born today in
the
movies?
Hacker?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
You say the hacker?
Yeah, I was just joking though.
But that's
I kind of would.
We were joking about the other day, right? With the like, you know, the hacker, and also when they're watching the security footage and stuff like that. Remember we were having that conversation?
Yeah.
Is that an archetype, you know, or is that like a stereotype or a cliche? We did talk about cliches.
Yeah.
And is there what's the difference in a cliche and an archetype?
Well, I mean, I think a cliche archetype's like a type of role person. And I would say that a lot of times, I don't know, this is just me riffing off the top of my head. You know, I haven't really put much thought into it, so I might change my opinion. But I feel like the archetypes remain the same, just the way they look and are exhibited now are a little different, and it fits more the modern age, you know? So it's like when you mention the warrior might not be, you know, the guy, it's not Spartacus, you know, swords and sandals, but let's take something like The Social Network. The warrior might be the Winklevoss twins, you know, more intimidating, but it's like they're not, you know, a stereotypical warrior per se.
Right. So like the hacker, you know, is that you're saying basically that would be sort of like just one of the old archetypes, but it's being displayed in a way
in a different way. Yeah. Where I think a cliche, though, to go back to that point, is it's not always an archetype, but it could be an archetype.
Right.
I think a cliche is more flat. So I feel like that it's usually not kind of like explored. So a character that's kind of like a cliche doesn't have much substance to their character, whereas like a archetype like has the potential to be a more well-rounded character. There's like room for character development and stuff like that. That's kind of how I feel about it.
Like they list the magician, and that almost sounds like.
And we're back to Joe Exotic.
yeah. They list their strengths are knowledge, strategy, and historical understanding. Weaknesses are hubris, anger if they don't get their way, sometimes warlike. It is Joe Exotic. Motivation, power, and organization. They see chaos in the world and know how to solve the puzzle. Brad, how much have you watched of Ozark?
Well, I mean, I guess to give a better understanding of it, when it first came out, I saw, you know, the first few episodes, maybe 5 or so of the first season, and hadn't watched any more, but my parents watch it. So with me being here visiting them, I jumped in, especially knowing that Aaron Owenby from the Fart Formula was in like one of the first episodes. You know, that was really cool to see. My dad was like, "We got to rewind," you know, to see her again.
All my family was texting me, and they were like, and I sent Erin a text and told her she did great.
Yeah, she did an awesome job.
Just to clarify that, Erin Owenby is an actress we've worked with a good bit. She's actually in that new music video we shot with Indigo Girls recently. So, but she is on the new season of Ozark, season 3. And it's cool. She had like a cool part, had lines in it and everything. It was cool seeing somebody we've worked with so closely on such a major show.
I love it when that happens, when you watch something and it's like, hey, we've worked with them.
Yeah, I feel like last season of Stranger Things was like that. It's like, oh, yeah, I recognize them, and I know them, and I know them. You know?
All right.
The girl who was one of the aliens, her name's escaping me at the moment. For encounters. Yeah, Lane. She was in there for a split second.
Yeah, and Shane Smith, one of our fellow film school workers, knew a lot of people who were extras. Shane was in the sauna scene.
Yeah.
I feel like he's in everything, man.
Yeah.
I've never even met him before, and you guys just point him out in everything we watch.
Yeah, Shane's always popping up and stuff, which is awesome. Shane was definitely, he's well deserving of it for sure.
Well, anyways, I guess on Ozark is, I'm not going to say anything for any spoilers or anything like that, but the season is very well done, man. But it's.
Did you finish the whole season?
Yeah, and it's dark. It's really sad. I think one of the things they do really well is they're exploring mental health in this season for sure, highlighting with Wendy's brother, that character. He's bipolar, and it's just the sort of the suffering that somebody with that like a mental illness they can't control.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to watch. Some of the parts are very hard to watch. That actor is fantastic. I mean, he's incredible.
So, like, was he first introduced in this season, or was he like?
Yeah, I've never seen him before.
Okay, because I thought that's what I thought in one of the first episodes with his introduction as him being the substitute teacher. I thought it was like
that was a good intro.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like I felt like at the beginning of the season, he's not like, it doesn't seem like he's like super important as a character necessarily. But his role becomes a lot more important, but also his character just gets way deeper. And I mean, and his portrayal of the character is so spot on. I feel like he just did a great job. I mean, it seems so genuine, so real. I don't want to ruin it with any spoilers or anything.
Yeah,
but
that will put spoiler warnings on. But real life Tiger King, you need to know.
No, everything's out in the open with that.
But I can't help but think about what like character archetypes, like in a show like that, even like especially you've got this like drug lord, you've got this guy that's like running this cartel, someone like that, like I don't know who that would. I guess he would be the ruler. That's what they list the ruler here. But he's also, I don't know, this sounds kind of accurate because his strengths are power, communication, leadership skills. I don't know about that, but weaknesses are control at all costs and paranoia at plots against them. And I'm like, that sounds accurate for someone, a character like his.
Yeah.
I think archetypes are in like everything, like games, movies, books, and it's super important to understand what each one like really represents and means, because I think that like once you have a base of like an archetype, you can kind of like make like a subtype of their character almost. Like you can almost kind of like build off of it and like design like your own unique characters in that way. And that's like really where the power of like having that base archetype comes from. And I think it's super important in storytelling.
Yeah.
I agree.
Have people in stories ever changed archetypes and like
I would say so.
Someone else or a different one?
You mean like they go from one archetype to another?
Yeah.
The character changes.
I mean, I feel like the obvious answer would probably be yeah, right.
I feel like a bad guy turning good, or like maybe like one season he's like the main bad guy, and then the next season he teams up with the hero or whatever.
Yeah, or even Obi-Wan Kenobi in like the Star Wars prequels is very different in his role from the sequels or the original trilogy.
I think a good example of that would be Steve on Stranger Things. He's goes from that antagonist to really someone who's helping the kids.
It's like a caretaker.
Yeah, he's almost a caretaker, a mentor, when he was an antagonistic force.
And you see that shift at like the end of season 1. Like you can kind of see where like he's like making that like character development or like that archetype transition.
Yeah. Okay. So Ellis, you were talking about playing video games or archetypes in video games. How much video games have you been playing this week? Just as much as the week before?
Putting in like 10-hour shifts, dude, sometimes.
10-hour
like
shifts?
At least on the weekend at least. But yeah, dude, it's been a lot. I've been playing this new game, Warzone, which is insane. It's like have you ever heard of a battle royale? You know Hunger Games, right?
Yes.
So you know how like you have to you have like a group of people and you basically have to eliminate each other and the last one is the winner or whatever?
Yeah. Isn't Fortnite like that?
Yeah, Fortnite's like that. So you go in and you have a squad of 3 and it's in like a Call of Duty like city or whatever. It's like this huge entire like population. There's 150 people. And like you land and you have to scavenge guns and stuff and you have to just like start eliminating everyone. And it's like so nerve-wracking because there's 150 people in the world and you don't know when you're going to turn around the corner and there's someone right there. And like if you lose, you get sent to like this thing called the goulash. And then you get to do like a 1v1 against someone else who died. And if you win, you get to come back once with like an extra life. But it's like so intense.
These are real people you're playing against.
Yes. So it's like if you win, you bested 147 other people.
Dang, that's crazy.
And it's so realistic looking. Like the quality is insane. I'll have to just record like one game and just send it to you to show you. It's so cool.
What is it on? Is it on PlayStation or computer? Or?
I'm playing it on PC, but like it's on everything.
Ellis is becoming the video game king. He's like walking around his house in a robe with like a crown.
Dude,
have you won a game of it yet?
I've only won one time. And I was playing with my friend Sterling and this like random guy, and our random guy was terrible at the game. But we just ended up being in a house at the very end because like there's a circle, Luke and Brad, that like closes in. Brad, you probably know.
Oh, like in Fortnite, it just starts bringing it.
It's in. Like this.
Okay, so it's like forcing you into the.
Yes, it forces everyone. The circle slowly gets smaller and smaller, which forces everyone in to eliminate each other, and it's like this gas that like basically will like insta kill you. But you can get these like gas masks. In our game that we won, we ended up in like the only building in like the circle, and the gas was like slowly like forcing everyone out, and we just had a bunch of RPGs and we were just like raining down RPGs on everyone. It was so fun.
Dang.
I'll record one and just send it to you so you can see.
Gotcha. The kind of film topic I wanted to talk about, well, I had an idea and I guess we can bring it up, but first I was reading all this stuff on started on Reddit, like most crazy rabbit trails I feel like I go on, but it was talking about actors who were difficult to work with on set, and it mentioned Marlon Brando. And I knew a few things about Marlon Brando being difficult on set, but I did a little bit more research, and late career Marlon Brando was insane to work with. Like he showed up to Apocalypse Now like overweight, didn't know any of his lines, like didn't want to do it. So Francis Ford Coppola sat down with him. Like Marlon Brando rambled on for like 3 hours. He records him rambling, then takes snippets from the book Heart of Darkness, which Apocalypse Now is based off of, and like he cuts up a bunch of the lines from the book and just rambling that Marlon Brando did, like re-records it or whatever, and then gets Marlon Brando an earpiece. So if you've seen the movie, he's like Marlon Brando's in like the shadows half the time, and he's, because it's hiding how overweight, fat he's gotten, and also the earpiece that they're feeding him all these lines. And then there's
really?
and then I saw a photo, I'll send it to you so you can add it to the podcast, of on the set of The Godfather, Robert Duvall having cue cards for Marlon Brando, like in the belt line of his pants. And it was just like sitting on his chest.
What?
So it's like,
so the Robert Duvall had it on him so that Brando could look at him and see it?
I guess another actor, and he's probably positioned like either it's blocking how, so you can't see the cue cards on Duvall, or, he's just right off camera or something. But apparently, like in Brando's excuse, from what I read, he didn't want to do that or he didn't want to memorize lines so he could give a more authentic take. But then the later he went, he just like was a pain to work with. The Island of Dr. Was it Moreau? Let me try to find this quote. There's a really good documentary called Lost Souls. If you know anything about this movie, the director, the original one, Richard Stanley, got kicked off the set, and then he hid as an animal. Like, it's the notorious set. He gets kicked off. He hides as one of the animal monsters on set, in costume the whole time. No one knows he's still there in Australia while they're filming it. They bring in another film director. Val Kilmer pitches a fit, and then Marlon Brando takes forever to show up. So Ron Perlman was a part of this. I'm trying to find where that thing, from Ron Perlman's memoir, he's talking about how every day they were waiting for Brando to show up, and they were just filming whatever, stuff that just wasting days of filming because they think, Brando's going to show up today, and then he doesn't. And so they would throw a party every night just in the chance that Brando would show up. And then they get word that, he's going to Tokyo instead. So they have a PA waiting at the airport to pick him up. And then he wouldn't show up that day. And then they're like, he's stopping by Singapore. He'll be here soon. So the PA goes to the airport, pick him up. And then they have a party that night because he's going to be there. And then he doesn't show up. They still have the party. And then finally, the day they don't send the PA, Marlon Brando shows up. And Ron Perlman in his memoir talks about how every newspaper in whatever part of Australia they were in was mentioning how big of a deal and how much Brando was upset that no one was there to pick him up, even though they probably went a week or more of sending a PA to just be on call, waiting for him. Yes.
Dude, I would be so mad if I was the director, man. Yeah.
And this is, at this point, I think it's the second director that shows up. Brando shows up to this movie weighing 400 pounds. He's way overweight.
Whoa.
Ellis, you need to throw up a picture of him from this movie. Brando shows up, decides to put sunscreen all over his face, so he's as wide as my shirt right here. He puts a colander on his head. He also brings with him the world's smallest man at the time, who was 2'3". And this guy's hanging with him the whole time. Brando will not act in the scene unless this guy is there in the scene with him.
And the scene?
Yes.
What?
Is that guy in the movie?
Yes.
Is he in the movie?
I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen clips from the documentary, and he's in the movie.
Wow.
And apparently they have footage. I read another article where they have footage of Brando. They wasted the first 7 or 8 days with him being there, of him just singing Froggy Went Courtin' to this world's smallest man. Stuff that wasn't even in the script. He's just wasting time.
Dude.
Man.
That's the power of video editors at its finest. Turning it around, obviously, because that is the worst.
Marlon Brando, for all the amazing work he did, I feel after what I just read this weekend, it seems he did A Streetcar Named Desire, like pretty much reinvented acting along with James Dean and a few others, brings in like the modern era of acting, being kind of in the moment. And then like later into his career, he just doesn't care. He's like, I'm Marlon Brando, I can do whatever I want. They paid him like $3 million to be in the Superman movie. And then like he constantly fought with them for him to have to do less days of set. And he was only there for like maybe 4 or 5 days. And he was constantly fighting for him to do way less.
Dude, how does somebody get to that point? At what point do you become so, I guess, famous? That you just can, like, I don't know, you don't care at all about the crew, anyone else working on the movie, your director,
just the money that's being spent.
Yeah, and you're just like, literally, you're the one person that could remedy all this if you just show up and act in the movie, which is your only job, is to just show up and act. And you can't be bothered to like show up on set and do your job, or like, look like you're supposed to look for the character. Instead, you show up 400 pounds
and just throws like sunscreen and just paints your face. Dude, so the funniest thing, the last movie that he starred in, I read about, it's called The Score, and it's directed by Frank Oz. I haven't seen this movie, but Frank Oz is, he did the voice of Miss Piggy. He was part of the Muppets. He did Yoda. So he's directing this movie. Brando apparently hated him so much that he would constantly call Frank Oz Miss Piggy or Fozzie Bear. He would never call him by his name. And he also got to the point where he wouldn't even talk to him. So Robert De Niro was in this movie as well. And Frank Oz had to communicate, like, had a monitor. He's watching the movie play out. This is in 2001. And he's watching all the footage from a monitor way far away. And De Niro is having to direct Marlon Brando. And he's taking cues from Frank Oz through an earpiece. And Frank Oz is like, so far away.
Because he wouldn't listen to Frank Oz.
Yes, he wouldn't listen to the director.
So the actor had to give him the advice and the direction from the director. Wow.
That's some serious, like, star power, being drunk on star power, I feel like, to just be able to do that, like, and get away with it.
Yeah, and they just kind of forgive him. Like, I read a quote in an article of Frank Oz kind of after the fact, and he's like, yeah, maybe I should have handled it different, but it's whatever. It probably wasn't me handling it the best way. I was like, dude, Marlon Brando wouldn't take advice from you. Like, you're the director. That's your job.
I would never work with him again, dude.
Dude, I couldn't imagine. That's what I wanted to ask you, Luke. Like, if someone came to our set and acted like that, I feel like we would kick them off. Of course,
you fire them, dude. Yeah, get someone else.
Like, I just don't know.
Like, if in our position, we would, but like, I guess if we were in a position where we were having to work with Marlon Brando or something, then you're like, what do you do? Because there's the studio and like all the other people that are pumping money into it are expecting Marlon Brando to sell this movie, right? That's like their selling point, is this big actor.
True.
So you'd have to get I guess he got pretty creative by feeding the direction to another actor.
I just feel like all these people are like, okay, you weren't supposed to show up to set that overweight, so I will make it work. Forget about it.
Yeah. See, that's where I think that's a little crazy, because usually, I mean, you hear about it all the time with what do you call it, like actors and stuff. They have to lose weight for a role. They have to whatever. I feel like that's something where they would be. I guess maybe they were already in production though, so they were like, well, it's too late. Like we're already spending money out here.
Yeah.
Filming,
well, I think the thing is with him, in a lot of his older roles, he wasn't like the main star, like
Bruce Willis.
Yeah, like Bruce Willis now. Because like the Dr. Monroe, The Island, that movie, Val Kilmer's the star, and Val Kilmer's just as much of a prima donna too. But there's Sozo.
Yeah.
But
Well, like, what would you do if like let's say that you have this actor on set and he's like calling one of you Miss Piggy, and like he's calling one of you Miss Piggy and is disrespecting one of the directors. What does the other director do? That he's like, listen.
I think you'd have to put your foot down. Like, you can't let someone just disrespect you and walk all over you on set. Like, regardless of if they're famous or whatever, there's a point where it's like you have to maintain control of the situation, even if they're insane or something.
Yeah.
But think about, like, I mean, when we're on set and we're filming, so much work has gone to get us to that point. And if one of the actors was, behaving like that or whatever, think about, I mean, imagine like we're filming encounters like we just were, like at that jail or something.
Mm-hmm.
That took a lot of work to even get in that space, to navigate that and coordinate with the owner. And it's like, we couldn't probably come back and shoot another day at that point, just budget wise, everything else. So it's like, I don't know what we would do if someone was acting that way. Cause it's like, you couldn't just be like, you're fired. Cause it's like, we got to finish filming, but who's going to play this role if we just pick
especially
if
filming, it was one thing I just never realized growing up, but it makes perfect sense now. Like, filming never happens in sequential order, right? So taking the jail bunker scene, for example, from our new movie Encounters, like that movie, like
that's like the end of the movie.
It's the end, but we filmed it the second day of filming. We had 2 more after that. So it's like, if you fire someone from that part, they show up later, even earlier in the movie. It's just
Yeah. Like they're supposed to show up earlier in the movie. You're filming them in a point later in the movie, but if they're supposed to be there earlier in the movie, you can't like bring in another actor to film tomorrow because today you're filming the end of the movie.
So. I mean, luckily we've worked with like really, really great actors. I feel like no one that we've worked with has ever been like a drama queen or anything like that. Everyone's been like solid. Super awesome and solid on every short film, project that we've made, even a lot of our commercial work. I can't think of a single person who's been like that. So we've really lucked out, but I imagine, once you start working with some of the really, really big Hollywood actors, there might come some, difficulties. Who knows?
So, Brad, this reminds me of, you remember when we watched Orson Welles doing the wine commercial?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. I can't remember what happens in that exactly.
He's just drunk, man. He's so drunk. Are you pulling it up?
I have it pulled up. Hold on.
He's like, the French.
Guys hear me?
Zoom, According to Zoom, we got 5 minutes left. Just a heads up.
Okay.
Oh, there's that Photoshop editing.
1 and 2, take 1. With over that, action please. Just do anything? No, sorry, cut. Yeah, rolling. 1 and 2, take 2.
It's so blurry.
Ah, the French. Champagne by Paul Masson.
So
inspired by that same French excellence. It's fermented in the bottle, and like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. So Paul Masson. Action, please.
Dude, Orson Welles is another one that, like, I felt like was super brilliant in their early career, and then just got
inspired by that
kind of overweight and lost it a little bit.
The bottle of like the best French champagne, it's vintage dated. So Paul Masson.
French.
The French.
That was really funny.
Crazy. Well, anything else Y'all want to talk about?
Yeah, Ellis, what did you have for us?
I had a couple things, but the one that really struck me that was super crazy was this past weekend, the U.S. box office recorded 0 in sales.
Dang.
Whoa, is that for real?
Yeah, that's for real. Partially because I think they're like everything's closed, like the theaters and everything are closed, which is why it recorded 0 in sales. But nonetheless, that's the first time in history that our box office has recorded 0 on a weekend.
I thought like even some drive-ins were running though. You think it's still so low that it's not worth counting?
It's either that or maybe the people that keep track of it weren't in the office, and so they weren't actually taking they weren't taking the statistics. You know?
Okay, so it says for the first time in almost 3 decades, major Hollywood studios are not reporting weekend box office returns.
Yeah, see, that's what it is. That's why it was 0. But regardless,
it says due to the coronavirus pandemic, there's really no point. Even if a few hundred theaters, mostly smaller venues, some of them old school drive-ins, are still operational throughout the U.S. That's crazy, dude.
Makes sense.
So that's the first time in U.S. history, or in movie history, I guess, that we're going to have 0 recorded for box office sales.
Yeah. Of course, I mean, I guess people are still, I know a lot of the studios are switching to streaming, you know.
Yeah,
so
AMC's working on streaming directly to your house, is what I heard.
Well, like Amazon has like a lot of the recent releases that you can like rent for like $5 or $6. I think some you can only buy, but we got less than a minute.
It says a similar lull in box office reporting occurred in 1994. So I guess that's the last time something like this happened.
94. What happened in 94 that would cause
it was after the Northridge earthquake in the winter of 94. I don't know.
Strange.
Okay, what else was there, Ellis?
We got less than a minute.
The other one's a pretty beefy topic. Maybe we save it for next time. But I was going to ask you guys to kind of dig deep into like how pre-production works for us, and like really like, since we talk about post and production a lot, kind of like detailing like pre-production.
We could pick up when we start the episode 13. We'll open up with that.
Oh, we didn't even announce what episode. This is 12?
No, I said it at the beginning.
Okay. I forgot. My bad. Okay.
All
well,
right.
Signing off. We'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.